This character right here, the Undertaker, is peak. Absolutely peak. She's a fantastic and really fun character to play. She has so many different builds that she can run, and every single one is just super cool. I have about 10 different builds that I have made that I am going to share with you guys. None of them are Deep of Night related. I'll do Deep of Night stuff at a later date. And no, I'm not going to really break down the character as like a guide. I've already done that. And there also isn't going to be too much gameplay shared in this video, but I do have gameplay for like most of the builds that I will talk about. And I'll just like link the runs for those gameplay down below. They're either posted on this channel or my second channel, but yeah, I'll just link them down below. But yeah, getting into the first build, just going to talk about just a very basic and all-purpose build to use that I mainly use in like trios if I just want to have this the regular Undertaker experience, not changing up any of the stats, not doing anything too fancy. Now, how this build works is that you're pretty much just using your best hammer and then spamming light attack, being that she still has a good faith scaling, still try to find incantations along the way and just like use your best incantations until you run out of FP and then switch back to the hammer. And as you can tell by this build, it's not like the greatest set of relics of all time, especially this middle one. Still looking for a better roll with this attack power increased by landing the final blow of a chain attack. But this is still important for the build because we do want to just spam light attacks to maximize our DPS, specifically one-handed light attacks. The two-handing is better for stance breaking, but I don't typically care to run this build in solo where stance breaking is typically more prevalent. In trios, you kind of want to just maximize your DPS, which light attacks are just going to be doing that's best, and one-handing light attacks are just faster with the hammer, and you want to be able to get to that final light attack quicker. And the good thing is with her unique hammer moveset, it only takes 4 light attacks to get to the final swing, which a regular hammer moveset typically takes 5, and with continuous chains, it's only going to take 3. So you can keep the uptime of this buff, which is 12% damage for 20 seconds, a lot more often, and that's going to obviously stack perfectly with her character skill, which when you continuously attack, it does end up boosting her damage even further, and that can be 20% damage, and the successive attacks boost attack power can be up to 35% damage, and this sustained DPS can be higher than an executor using a purple katana. Obviously, assuming that the Undertaker is also using a purple hammer, then it's going to be comparable DPS. And the executor has an S scaling and arcane. So yeah, she can actually output very high DPS just by using a hammer while also getting good synergy with spells. Now, this build also is going to have, you know, the activating ultimate art increases attack power. Any single time you use the ult, that's 15% damage for 40 seconds. In trios, where how often you can actually get your ult throughout an entire boss fight, that's just basically free damage. And the last relic slot is pretty flexible. Partial HP restoration in combination with taking attacks improves attack power is pretty much a god roll on almost any single character, but especially the Undertaker when she has a character skill that gives her a bunch more poise and just more damage negation. But you can put anything that you really want here. Even things like just giving you more ult regen on kills is pretty good, but I like this one a lot more. Now, if you do not care to use spells at all with the Undertaker, you don't care to pick up incantations and like spam them and then switch back, then I would use this relic right here. You can get this guaranteed by beating the DLC and buying it off the collector signboard. This actually does improve her dexterity and reduce her faith and vigor. Now, the vigor is only -2, which is counteracted by this +3 right here. And she does actually lose out on some faith, but the dex is actually so much more that even if you do have some strength faith-based weapons like the Envoy's Horn or the Maracas Hammer, you actually get more damage with this relic equipped. And that's not even to talk about other quality-based weapons like fist weapons or twin blades or axes. You're getting over 15% more damage with this relic equipped with those particular weapons. So you make sure a much more versatile melee-based character. So if you did not care to use spells, this would be the relic I use. And you can do the exact same thing as a last build, but that one is kind of more so for the hammers, being that it has pretty good synergy with a light attack spam and getting to the final light attack. So without that, just running this middle relic here again, the necklace with the taking attacks or the successive attacks with the activating ultimate art is pretty much just a god roll. It's the best relic by far. Is honestly, this relic is good on every single character as I talked about in a previous video. But as for the third relic slot, once again, this is pretty flexible. I've taking attacks improves attack power, physical attack up, and more poison damage negation when getting knocked back, which is pretty niche, but I'm pretty much just having it for the taking attacks improves attack power, because you're pretty much always taking damage throughout an expedition, and this is 15% more damage for 10 seconds. So throughout an entire boss fight, it's more likely than not, you're always going to have that damage boost, but you can trade this out for things like more vigor, partial HP restoration, or more ultimate charge when defeating enemies. Now, this critical attack build right here is my go-to when playing solo, because I think critical attack builds it is best for solo because one, you can guarantee that you're the one getting the critical hit, and in solo, enemies have a lot less poise. So with a character that starts off with a hammer, she can actually stance break very quickly with those charged heavy attacks, and you can get benefit of that lots of crit damage. Now, with the successive attacks and boost attack power relic, you're going to be better off trying to find fists, and I would like for this build to have dormant fists somewhere, but unfortunately I only have one blue one, and I kind of want to have the more crit damage. And the merchants are still very likely to sell fist weapons. Now, you ideally want to get the iron balls or the star fists because it synergizes perfectly with those two-handed charged heavy attacks with the successive attacks perk, and you can keep spamming those charged heavy attacks, get a stance break, get a crit with basically any weapon. Now, the dexterity relic will also do very well here, but we only have 3 slots. But if you don't care for the critical attacks, you can still run dormant fists with the dexterity relic, and you can still get lots of stance breaks. You're just not going to really benefit off the higher crit damage, but getting high crit damage is always really fun, unless you fight enemies like tree sentinels where you can't get a critical attack, then it's not going to be as fun. Then the dexterity relic and the dormant fists would just work a lot better. But this build right here has messed up so many different Night Lord bosses, and just keep stacking up on critical hits when you actually go throughout an expedition, and it's going to work perfectly fine for you. Okay, now this is like the last of the pure melee builds that I do want to talk about, and it is going to be a tanking based build. Now keep in mind that this one is going to be a bit more of a meme because it's not as consistent, especially once you get to day 3. But the entire thought process is that you start off with Endure, you have partial HP restoration, and taking attacks improves attack power. So you're always using Endure to trade out with enemies, and just keep spamming charged heavy attacks, stagger them out of attacks, get your health back with a partial HP. Like, it can work very well, it's just super reliant on finding really good damage negation perks in-game. Like, you have to find things like charged heavy attacks boost damage negation, or taking attacks improves damage negation, and if you find things like gradual flask restoration, or just more healing on critical hits, those things could be super beneficial for this particular build. And in the gameplay that you're probably seeing right now, I actually got lucky and have basically all of those things. And it does make a very quick work and very easy work of a lot of bosses in day 1 and day 2. And although I did win the expedition, I barely scraped by in the day 3 boss against the Dreadlord, so it's not going to be as consistent. But once you do get to the boss, you can just play it normally and actually dodge attacks, because I was just tanking literally everything. I did basically a no dodging run, and I barely scraped by. So it can be very powerful, but it's very RNG heavy. I wish I got better RNG with these relic perks and having things like more vigor. It's still a really good build. This build right here is just a holy damaging build. So when you do fight those bosses that are weaker to holy damage and have that holy weakness that you can exploit, like Hjelster or the dogs, then I would typically run something like this, although it's not as necessary. But the entire build is just building around a Sacred Blade and guaranteeing a holy damaging weapon, and also have starting armor to deals holy damage with holy attack up, which is pretty cool. And we're going to run the Balances Relic, which is 20% more damage with your skills and just 5% more damage with your melee attacks. But yeah, the build is pretty self-explanatory. You just go ahead and take your starting weapon into a tunnel, make it purple, and then spam Sacred Blade the entire time. You may have to stock up on a couple of Starlight Shards, but Sacred Blade is pretty efficient, and you do have a bit of FP recovery, but it is still a decent build. The only reason why you wouldn't really care to run it is because you are really likely to find some holy damaging weapons with the Undertaker, with the Envoy's Horn and the Maracas Hammer. But this pretty much just guarantees it, and guarantees a good projectile option, because Envoy's Horn does have a projectile option, but it's a bit slow, and Maracas Hammer doesn't really have a projectile. So if you do like to have a projectile and guarantee something like that, and you don't really care to rely on trying getting some holy damaging spells, then I would run this build. Okay, now getting into the spell-based builds, this one right here might be my favorite of hers to run, period, not even just talking about spells. It might just be my favorite Undertaker build, because she really is fun when it does come to her being a caster, because her character skill can give her a lot more poise, and you can just poise cast. You can trade out with enemies while casting spells, and if you find some really cool physical damaging spells like Stoner Rank or Bestial Sling, and you're trading out and doing decent stance damage with those spells, it feels really fun. But yeah, when you are playing her as a spellcaster, you obviously want to have the improved Mind and Faith relic, which actually does give her more faith than the Revenant, although not going to be as much Mind, and it is going to be at the cost of strength, albeit it's only 20 to 30 strength, so you still can get okay damage, but you still definitely want to have to have your spells be your primary option. But yeah, I have a pretty good selection of rolls of these relics right here. I have the taking attacks improves attack power with bestial incantations, and the sorcerer's rise gives me more FP, which is kind of just insane. But definitely you want to be looking or fishing for physical damaging incantations because of this perk right here. You get 15% more damage for 1 minute if you just use any incantation buff. And it doesn't matter how long it lasts. It could be Black Flame Blade. It could be a basic healing spell. It could be something like Golden Vow. So you do want to try and just fish for those physical damaging incantations alongside some buffs. Now, I would love to have Dormant Seals here, especially for the new map that doesn't really have many points of interest that allows you to get seals. So that's going to be one weakness to this build. If I did have like a yellow Dormant Seals, I actually would get rid of this relic, even though it is really good. But Dormant Seals is actually going to be very important. So I only really play this build for the older map when there's like lots of points of interest to find seals, because you are more likely than not going to end up finding a physical damaging spell. But when it all comes together, the build is extremely powerful. It's really fun to play with, and her character skill just makes it so good. Now, if you did want to play her as a spellcaster, but you didn't necessarily care to just run just physical damaging spells and have to rely on lots of RNG, you can go ahead and just run your Dormant Sacred Seals, just run the Faith Relic, and then you're perfectly fine. Like, it'll work out for you. You can literally get more damage than the Revenant just by running this relic. And if you run the Dormant Seals, then you basically just have like another Revenant, but just with more health and arguably a much better character ability kit. So yeah, and you do have one spare relic slot available. I am running the activating arts increases attack power. The successive attacks isn't really too important here, but I just like to maximize my damage, and this is just a bunch more ult damage and more damage after I use my ult. You can actually have this be something like just more health if you wanted it to be, or more kills give you more ultimate regen. That could be pretty good, but yeah, it's pretty basic. But if you want to have a BA spellcaster, you can literally just have something like this. Now, one thing I didn't really mention about that physical spell build is that it's good for basically every single boss. Like, there isn't anything that's really resist to physical damage, so it's going to be good no matter what. But there still is going to be circumstances where you might want to go spec into a particular elements to really take advantage of like a boss's weakness. And that's what this build is. We're just running Dragon Cult incantations with the Mind and Faith. Now, once again, running a faith-based build with the Undertaker and not running Dormant Seals can be a problem. However, it's mainly a problem for the newer map. For the older map, it's not that big a deal. And if I'm going to be running lightning-based spells, it's going to be for bosses like Augur or Dark Drift Knight. The Balancers and the Dreadlord are actually both resist to lightning, I believe. So I'm not going to ever run this build for the DLC expeditions, so I don't have to worry about running into the new map. So yeah, I have a build for this with some pretty decent rolls, have 3 or more hammers equipped, which is 20% more damage now as of the recent update, and it has Evergel too. So that's the only reason why I do have a lightning build, is because I do have really good relics. Otherwise, I wouldn't really care to run it, and I'll just stick with a physical damaging build or just like the regular spell-based build. Okay, this build here might be a little bit of a meme because it is based around spamming your ultimate attack. Although it can be very powerful, especially in combination with their passive ability. And if you have 3 Undertakers on your team all running a build like this, just spamming their ultimates back and forth, you might not have an easier expedition in your entire life. Like, that's how powerful a build like this can be. Although in trios, it actually might not perform that well. Because one, in a boss fight, you can't guarantee that there'll be other enemies to kill. You can't also guarantee that you'll be the one to get the critical attack. And you can't be the one to guarantee that the grab attack of a boss is going to hit you, so you can dodge it to get more ult regen. So there's some pros and cons, but with the relics that we have here, it's going to be fine either way. Because of this bad boy relic, the necklace that gives us the more damage on an ult and after it, which is 15% damage for 40 seconds. It does have the successive attacks, which makes any weapon be really good. And it comes with ultimate art regen, which is just ridiculous. We are going to run the Everdark Fulgor relic, which does come with increased stamina, which is nice. The boost attack power of added affinity attacks. What that means is that if you do have a weapon that comes with elemental damage, the elemental portion of that weapon is going to get a 10% damage boost. So, for instance, if you have something like the Envoy's Horn, which will get about like half physical, half holy damage, it's going to get a 10% increase just to that holy damage. So it's basically a 5% increase to all of your elemental damaging weapons. But we are mainly going to use this just for the defeating enemies. Gives like 5% more ult charge. This does not stack, so running multiple does not matter. In Deeper Night, it would with the +1 versions, but we're not going to talk about that. And we do have the Adele relic. I think it's the regular Adele relic, which comes with a critical hit bonus. Critical hits give more ult charge, and it's more stamina recov. It's perfectly fine. We mainly use it for the ult regen, so we can try to be the one to get the critical attack, get the boosted damage, and just get more ult regen, so we can just constantly keep spamming it. It's a pretty fun build to run, although it might not be as reliable on a lot of expeditions, but with the power of successive attacks, it's going to be viable no matter what anyway. Okay, now for the last build, I don't really have it on me right now because I don't have the specific relics for it. But one build that I am missing is a fire damaging build. I made a holy damaging build, something for lightning damage, physical damage, all purpose, but something to try and fish for fire damage would be fantastic. And a build like this one, where you're going around like light attack spamming, obviously successive attacks, I would like to have something like Dormant Great Hammers or Dormant Colossal Swords. And the reason being is that you can actually guarantee or almost guarantee getting a good fire damaging weapon. Because unfortunately with the hammers, there really isn't any fire damaging options. And I don't really want to run a spell-based build and have to rely on RNG, and also my Giant's Flame Incantation relics aren't really the best. But going to fish for Great Hammers can be fine because of the Cranial Vessel Candle Stand. And as I mentioned with that Light Attack relic, with Great Hammers you only need 3 light attacks to get to the final hit to get that 12% damage boost of that relic. And with Colossal Swords, it's the exact same thing. But I actually would like Colossal Swords better because one can obviously get any of these 4. You're more likely to get more legendaries. But because you have a 1 in 2 chance of your purple to be a God Slayer's Greatsword, so you have more likely to just find a fire-based weapon. And the God Slayer's actually works better with the successive attacks relic, and it's going to be faster to get to that final light attack. So I would rather have Dormant Colossal Swords, but either one is perfectly fine. I just unfortunately don't have one. I would like to fit it somewhere here, like in this last slot, so I can have run both of these with Dormant Colossal Swords, but unfortunately I don't have it. But yeah, that would be another build that I would like to make. Anyway, that is all 10 builds now shared and talked about. If you have your own opinions, let me know down in the comments below. Any of your own builds that you'd like to share, also just let me know down there. I will make something like this with the Scholar after I do review him, which hopefully will be soon, assuming that we don't get some like surprise announcement in the Game Awards tomorrow by From Software, and that's going to distract me with another video. So if that doesn't happen, then hopefully the Scholar review is tomorrow. But definitely do follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. If you want to go, check me out while the Game Awards is going on, and you can see my reactions and stuff. But otherwise, catch you guys on the next. See yous.